Hello, thanks for joining us on your channel of choice at this time, Africa Independent Television ET. Welcome to today's edition of your program, Focus Nigeria. My name is Gbenga, Aruleba. Let's quickly do a trip around the polity to tell you what has happened in the last 24 hours. And let's start from Anambra State. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, is now set for that state governorship election coming up on November 18. The Umbrella Party had its primaries yesterday, and as it was with previous attempts, the exercise yesterday was not devoid of intrigues and show of political brinksmanship till the very end. Now, while some of the aspirants stage walkout protesting what they call the doctoring of the delegates list to favor a particular anointed aspirant, some others who stayed did so perhaps grudgingly. But the exercise nonetheless went ahead and became a three-horse race at a point when others withdrew between renowned retired diplomat Oseloka Obaze, business mogul and chairman of Capital Oil and Gas, Ifeanyi Ubah, and a lawyer, Alexander Chike Obegolu. It was a clean sweep for Obaze, who had earlier been touted as a favored candidate, and his godfather is said to be former governor of the state, Mr. Peter Obi, who is hell-bent on showing Willie Obiano the exit door. Oseloka, who had worked in the Federal Ministry of External Affairs during the Babangida years, also worked with the United Nations, from where he retired in 2012 to join the government of Peter Obi. He had the office of secretary to the government, to the state government in that regime, that's Peter Obi's government, and also retained same office when Peter Obi's protege, Willie Obiano, became governor. Obaze, however, resigned from Obiano's government following the degeneration in the relationship between Peter Obi and his successor. Even then, at that particular time, the former governor had found his way to the PDP. So, you could expect all his followers, including Obaze, to follow suit. Yesterday, the primaries organizing committee led by Ebonyi State Governor Dave Umahi announced Oseloka Obaze as a clear winner, taking more than half of the 956 valid votes cast by delegates amidst protests by Ifeanyi Ubah.
The number of invalid votes were 2. Total number of accredited delegates 958. Total number of votes cast 958. Valid votes 956. Invalid votes 2. And by the powers of our constitution and the electoral guideline for these PDP primaries in Anambra State, I, Mweze David Umahi, Governor of Ebonyi State, and the Chief Returning Officer for this primary, hereby declare Obaze Oseloka Henry, who, having scored lawful votes of 672, the winner of this PDP primary, and is hereby returned as the candidate of the party.
There you have it. Henry Oseloka Obaze is the candidate of the PDP. I gave you the list of those that had emerged yesterday, who are already waiting in the wings, including the incumbent governor, Willie Obiano. Of course, Tony Nwoye will fly the APC flag. UPP has Osita Chidoka, former Minister of Aviation, as his own candidate. So, November 18, all set. It was also a very busy Monday for President Muhammadu Buhari as he received briefings on the management of the economy as well as the implementation of the 2017 budget and the plans for the 2018 fiscal document. The president received in audience the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, her budget and national planning counterpart, Senator Udoma Udodoma, and the Chief of Staff to the President, Abba Kyari. At the end of the briefing, the government announced on the president's official Twitter handle that he was happy with the reports, which point to the fact that the economy is picking up. Perhaps that report also got a boost with the report later in the day, that's yesterday, by the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, that the inflation rate has dropped. In its July report, the NBS said inflation dropped by 0.005% points from the 16.10% it was in June, which means inflation at the moment is just about 16.05%. The federal government has declared Friday, September 1 and Monday, September 4 as public holidays to celebrate the Eid al-Kabir. A government statement announced this on Monday afternoon. All right, some of the events trending at the moment. Our discussion is up next. And this morning, Livingstone Wechie will be joining me shortly as we key into some of the evolving national issues. We'll start from hate speech to attempts at fighting corruption. We'll talk about developments in the judiciary. What else? Okay. Once we have Livingstone here, you can't resist but talk about developments in Rivers State as well. You do know that last Friday, the Supreme Court upheld the decision of the Court of Appeal affirming that the APC is a winner of one of the senatorial seats. So by calculations now, the APC has 2 senatorial seats in Rivers State. And we'll look at how all of that impacts on the politics. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
It makes no difference to me really whether I win this election or not. I want you to believe me, and I'm not talking politics. For 25 years of my life, I fought for the freedom of Nigeria. Nigeria will attain independence on October 1, 1960. So it makes no difference to me whether the Sardauna or Balewa or Chief Awolowo or myself will become the first prime minister. So long as Nigeria is free, I'll be satisfied.
They see chaos and conflicts. We see community action for good governance. They see poverty and want. We see perseverance and the will to go on. They see economic law. We see the ingenuity and creative spirit of our people. We are AIT News, fresh, authentic views of Africa. How would you rather see the world? AIT News, all sides, all the time.
All right, if you're just joining us, we're set for the conversation for this morning. Livingstone Wechie is joining me. Livingstone is Executive Director of the Integrity Group. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good morning, Gbenga. Good morning, Nigerians.
A lot has happened in the last couple of weeks as well. You were here about a month ago or so now. Well, I also went on vacation, just coming back too.
Welcome back on board.
So both of us are new to some of the events. But, but let's start from the current ones. The attempt by the government to prohibit certain levels of comment categorized as hate speech. It's been generating a lot of controversy since last week when that indication was given. And of course, the military probably accentuated the situation when the director of Defense Information now?
Yes.
Said the military has mapped out strategies to kind of
monitor social media.
Monitor the social media, kind of Big Brother is watching you scenario that we are having now. Generally, how do you see this?
Well, you know, the subject of hate speech is as controversial as the subject of restructuring in terms of definition.
Okay.
We
have that there's no
duplicity or multiplicity. Exactly. The
definition.
question is what constitutes hate speech. Yes, morally you may refer to a particular statement as hate speech, but if you go look at it deeper, you discover that the political elite class is actually, proponents of what you call hate speech. You remember in 2015, or before the general election from 2011, the blood and the baboon story, You see people, you know, parading pictures of goats and putting on it, "My name is Jonathan." And then another bringing up bloods of the current president with blood all over his face and long teeth and calling him gorilla, vampire, and so on. You can see that both parties are guilty, and a lot of them rode on the wings of hate to come into power. And I think that if a subject should be called a crime, the vice president, incidentally, is a professor in constitutional law. He should know better. Although I was trying to probe into his statement that hate speech will be regarded as terrorism. I don't know what law he's relying on to say that. It has become a subject of national discourse. It has generated so much controversy, particularly among media practitioners, because Lai Mohammed made a statement that anchors on programs are allowing guests to make certain statements and get away with it. But again, before you criminalize an act, the law must say that act is a crime. Now, how do you define hate speech? It's an issue that should not come as oratory. There has to be a legislative approach as to say this statement amounts to hate speech. Of course, Nigeria is infested with too many agitation across board, from the IPOB, MASOB, Lower Niger Congress, then you have it on this end, the Boko Haram menace, where statements are made. You have the OPC angle, various regional agitation as a result of constitutional disputations. And the government has had one language over the years. The union is not negotiable. And that has provoked stakeholders. As a matter of fact, you've had people in power before this time who were once in power, who made such statements, and they are leaders of some of the agitation today. That is to say, it is not because you're in government. No government will be in power forever. So I think the question that has brought about this national agitation should be addressed once and for all. That is the foundation of all of these issues.
Don't you think the basis to start from actually is to restate that position that the unity of the country is not negotiable? I am not aware of any president in the history of Nigeria that has said that the unity of Nigeria is negotiable. Because that then means that you can't be in power. Upon coming to power, the first thing you do is to take the oath of allegiance. You swear to the Constitution, to uphold the Constitution. And right there, the Constitution, it is there that the unity of the country is not negotiable. How then do you expect a sitting president, for instance, to say that the unity of the country is negotiable? Well, that would be an impeachable statement.
I think that is a statement of power. The president and whoever is in power swore an oath, okay?
To protect the
Constitution. I did not swear an oath to protect any constitution. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm saying that if a president.
That's what I'm saying. So
because the president said in his broadcast when he came back 2 weeks ago that the unity of the country is not negotiable.
Jonathan said the same thing.
And people are
that was actually
up in arms, and I'm wondering what has he said that President Jonathan didn't say when he was inaugurating the 2014 confab that people want to use now as a basis for the restructuring we are clamoring for. What did Jonathan? What did Buhari
Jonathan
say?
Said the same thing.
What did Jonathan say that before him Obasanjo didn't say? Nothing.
It's a common statement of power. You know, once you're in power in this country, you protect the Constitution.
Yeah.
And the Constitution talks about indivisibility,
and
which is indissolubility. And we all understand that, but also understand the other view.
Shouldn't our agitations for restructuring be within the context of all of that? Yes, Nigeria is one country. Yes, there are problems. Let us within us as one people look at the problems and how to solve it.
Remember, you don't rule out agitations. People from various areas or parts of Nigeria have agitated that they don't have a stake in that document called the Constitution. I know we are looking at this matter on a lighter note, but again, you can't rule out regional agitation and ethnic agitations, where people are saying, we have an issue with this Constitution and we want the union to be discussed because nobody gets married by force. So I understand when government says so, but you know, sovereignty belongs to the people. So the role of government in this case, in my opinion, should be that both parties should come together and look at the issue. You can't continue to pretend that the house is not on fire. You know the source of fire, you want to pretend like you don't know the source.
Sovereignty
and the
belongs to the people, but is submitted to government.
That's what I'm saying.
And the people can only take it back through election.
From whom the government derives its power through the constitution.
Yes,
so
and the people can only take it back through election.
That's why some people have agitated for a referendum, which are processes. These are international practices. We understand the basis of the Nigerian question. But the way to go about it, in my opinion,
that's the problem.
The way to go about it,
yes.
Look at the South African experience, CODESA, a constitution that sequestered the people's assets, and they had to set up a process where the issues should be discussed, and they changed and they evolved the new constitution. And that's what Nigeria should be looking at. So that, it's my opinion.
I'm sure you know CODESA went on for years.
Yes, they had a target.
So our restructuring,
but we don't,
it's not do it now, and let us have results now.
The agitation here is age-long. It didn't start today. And I think government should reconsider these agitations and have a true discussion. How do you expect your wife and you to live in peace when she's saying, look, these are my issues, give me attention, and let's talk about it.
The husband and the head
exactly, of this house. And it's as simple as that. But we understand those who say, you know, the union is not negotiable, is indissoluble. That's based on the constitution. But there are those who are also challenging that constitution, and dialogue remains the panacea, which the president affirmed in his second speech. I was looking at something on social media where some person said the president's Monday speech when he came back from the UK was hate speech. Meanwhile, the second statement when he was addressing the political party leaders, APC and PDP, was love speech. And another person now said, well, it does appear that the president needs to look at those who write his speeches for him, because every speech should be based on national development. Buhari will not be in power forever. We wish him well, but he will not be in power forever. He will leave power someday. Some other person will come on board. But we should look at ways to address these issues by putting the matters on the table and allow people the voluntary opportunity to discuss the matter. And that will address all of this.
Let's conclude on those two issues that we brought together now. Hate speech and restructuring. First, hate speech. How do you think the government can go about this without trampling on people's rights in a constitutional democracy?
Well, like I said, there is a National Assembly which the Constitution created. And if you're coming up with, like I did mention earlier, I don't know the constitutional basis upon which the Vice President said that hate speech will amount to, as it were,
perhaps that's just a contemplation.
I listened to Garba Shehu yesterday on a sister station when he said they will approach it legislatively, meaning there is no document at the moment. Because you cannot enforce policies on people because the Constitution overrides policies. It doesn't matter how beautiful that policy is scripted. So I think it should be approached by way of coming up with procedures that are not repugnant or that are not in any way ultra-virus fundamental rights. There are
that takes away the rights of
exactly.
There
are fundamental democratic processes based on democratic principles and values that must be employed. And that's why you have a challenge of weak institutions in Africa, because of the absence of democratic values, processes, and principles by way of evolving a new order of governance or law.
Because whether we like it or not, the right of the people to hold those in government accountable.
No, you cannot guard them.
You cannot guard them. But then we also need to also draw a very thin line, probably thin line.
Yeah,
because words once spoken.
What do you even call hate speech? Because that would be the crux. What do you call hate speech? Because the 2019 is around the corner. Expect Donald Trump had a lot of banters with Hillary. I don't know if America has any law called hate speech. Well, maybe if hate speech is about, because some people have said, does it mean hate speech means criticizing government and power? This government will not be forever. So precedents must be looked at so that you don't leave power tomorrow and begin to regret your actions of yesterday. So I think a voluntary and holistic approach must be put in. And then maybe the NOA has more work to do beyond just saying hate speech, a reorientation. And that reorientation should not also divorce from the national questions about ethnic and regional agitations. These issues have a common foundation that must be looked at in order to address them, and that's why it zeroes down on the issue of restructuring,
which has become to the issue of restructuring,
which has become a mantra.
Again, one controversy that the president has also kicked off with his broadcast was what some people said an attempt to pass the buck.
Yeah,
because the president said it is the call of the National Assembly. Is the president right? Because I'm looking at the arguments of people who are saying it is the president's call.
Well,
and I'm looking at, are we trying to turn the executive to the president to a dictator if we are expecting the president to be the one that will decree all of these things into existence? If we don't go, because we cannot wish away the fact that we have a constitutional order in place.
Yes.
And all of this restructuring at the end of the day will come down to lawmaking.
Yes.
And the lawmaking responsibilities are, we know where they are situated.
No, the thing is, the president has affirmed the situation based on the laws guiding him. He is protecting the document, the constitution. But again, citizenship rights also come up. That's where we engage government. Government will say their part, citizens will say their part, and they should all reach a truce by discussing the issues. If the president says the National Assembly and then the Federal Executive Council, are the exclusive authorities to discuss the issues, I think the citizenship platform should engage government on their own stance, because they remain the final recipients or beneficiaries of this, so they have a say. So stakeholder management has to be upped at this level. You cannot rule out stakeholders, and every government knows that, and that's why the strategists within the current administration should look at it strategically, so they don't make a fundamental mistake.
So who are the stakeholders we need to engage on this issue? Because the National Assembly just concluded on a constitutional amendment process. A lot of people had thought that was the finest opportunity to take on board the agitations for restructuring. But we saw how the National Assembly frittered all of that away. If basic things as devolving power, because I'm sure if some levels of powers are devolved to the federative units, the level of agitation will probably reduce. But the National Assembly said no to all of that.
Well, the agitation will continue. You don't have the powers as you sit here to determine what IPOB does tomorrow, or what Lower Niger Congress does, or what Boko Haram does, or what OPC does. You may say all of that, but the land is on fire, and you must attend to them. My opinion is the government should be bold enough to say, let us deal with these matters, because Mr. President in 2015 did address the Palestinian state agitation for self-determination at the UN General Assembly. So the president has, and I believe people are trying to divert his attention, Mr. President has full understanding on the issues of self-determination, because he advocated for same for the Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly in 2015. And I stand with him in that opinion, that when these issues come up, his advisors and his strategists should work with him. The president has full understanding of these issues. So they shouldn't, exactly, they shouldn't manipulate the whole system as though the president, and then put him in a picture as though he's a dictator. Mr. President understands and he has full knowledge, because Nigeria is signatory to all of these international documents. And you cannot say abroad it should be applied and then back home it should not be applied. Mr. President has full understanding, and I respect that statesmanship in him to that extent.
So all that is required is for him to look up to the right
Mr. President should rise,
the right advisors
exactly,
to help him encapsulate
he should go back
what the roadmap should be.
He should rise above his advisors in this matter and stand on what he knows. I have 100% confidence and believe that Mr. President has full knowledge and understanding and has capacity to drive it based on his understanding of the international instruments on self-determination, that is to say the UN Charter, thereto. So he has the capacity to do that. He has talked about it on an international platform. So I think it will take a process, but let no one be seen as a less Nigerian than the other. The union is indissoluble and what do you call it again? Is indissoluble provided and to the extent that everybody should be allowed to express himself, and let's address the national question, and that's no crime anywhere. You can't criminalize the rights.
All right, let's go through what else is okay. Let's get to corruption.
Yes.
Has anything new happened this couple of weeks on corruption? Yeah, beyond the ZANI forfeiting either money or property. Okay, yeah, something new. The president signed some is there extradition or agreement?
Extradition treaty with some Arab states.
With some Arab states.
Yeah,
how will that strengthen the...
That may be by way of extradition, but our institutions are weak. And that's why we have a challenge, because we did, I signed up to a petition to the NJC, and then addressed a letter to the CJN, that's Honorable Justice Walter Onnoghen, yes. Demanding his resignation. And also
demanding whose resignation? The
CJN's resignation. And I'll give you the narrative. And then addressed one to the Secretary of the National Judicial Council, demanding that they investigate and subsequently take necessary actions to either penalize, punish, or sanction the current CJN. Now, there are two grounds on which that petition was raised. Now, the first was on the issue of gross misconduct. Remember that sometime in July, we did write the CJN not to visit Rivers State because he was coming to commission projects not captured in any accessible or known budget. And we gave a respectful and responsible warning that the CJN was to fall into a trap set by my governor, His Excellency Nyesom Wike, because questions as to the accessibility of our budget has been in the front burner, and any attempt by the CJN to visit and flag off judges' quarters will amount to legitimizing as well as giving judicial seal of approval to a matter that is already deemed as being corrupt, so or built on corruption or falsehood of fraud. And the CJN went ahead and flagged off that project. Yeah. 2 weeks after, barely 2 weeks after, Olashubo Shashore S.A.N. Made a publication, a public notice, caveat emptor, on this day of, what's it called? On this day newspaper, dated 4th August 2017, stating that the property upon which the CJN has gone to flag off a project for Judges' Quarter is in litigation, and that there is a consent order of injunction on that property. Total EMP is the claimant, Rivers State Governor and the Attorney General are defendants. Meanwhile, the CJN went ahead despite these warnings, and when Olashubo Shashore came up with this publication, it further justified the questions we had raised, that the CJN is approving something that is built on falsehood. And to that extent, we raised the question. The matter is in court in Rivers State. The CJN has come and led the judges of Rivers State to take sides on an issue that is before them in court, a subject matter in dispute. That goes to show that the CJN obviously may have been compromised or induced, and we had quarrels that the NJC cannot sit back, the Nigerian community cannot sit back when our CJN respected continues to jolly ride with politicians, particularly on a matter, a property that is in litigation, and judges are the ones adjudicating, and then he goes to flag of that same property that the court of competent jurisdiction had given an order, and the judge presiding over the case was also in that event, knowing that the land which he was adjudicating over is a matter before him in court, and the CJN gladly and delightfully leads them to that event and flags it off.
I understand all of this issue now. I didn't before.
Yes.
You know, you raised this issue. I think it was a day to that event that time.
Yes.
The last time you were here, I think it was a day to that event. Or the event had actually taken place.
The event had taken place.
The event had taken place.
Yes.
Now, I have a clear understanding of
what
your grounds is with now.
Yes.
That parcel of land
on
which the judges' quarters is located.
Yes. Is to be built.
And for which the CJN
came to flag off.
Lay the foundation is in dispute.
Yes.
And the Rivers State government is a defendant.
Yes.
And there's already an injunction on that land.
Yes.
Which meant that if the Rivers State government is law-abiding, it ought to obey that injunction that is against it already in a pending suit. Perhaps what makes it what is up now, which is why I said I'm just having a clear understanding now, is that I didn't know it was still pending. I thought it was already a concluded case.
Can I hint you something? I am aware that the CJN had full knowledge that property is in dispute.
I was going to ask, when you asked the CJN not to come and that budget wasn't, that project wasn't captured in the budget.
Yes.
My quick reaction when I wanted to interject that time was to ask, how would the CJN know? These are Rivers State politics. He is here in Abuja. He's not involved in...
before such personalities or figures come to places, they will be well briefed. And this is his constituency. You can't feign ignorance. The CJN, who should know better, is aware that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Let's assume he doesn't know, even if it is doubtless that he doesn't know. The bottom line is that honor demands that he steps down. He has breached his oath of office, and the NJC has a role to play. Now, I would zero that down to an issue, and I want to make it clear here. Remember, my state governor has been accused several times of having ties with Supreme Court judges and so on, and information available, reliable information available to me, is to the effect that my state governor has a standing tie with the CJN over an issue. Now, I'll give you the narrative.
You are saying reliable.
Reliable.
Because you may be taken to task as to the reliability of that information.
Yes, I'll give you a narrative so that it will guide you. The CJN is on a mission with our governor, given the Amaechi factor in court over indictment. As to the judgment,
I don't understand all of
the CJN is on a mission in alliance with the governor. They have a tie. They have an understanding. And I'll give you the narrative.
That's a very weighty allegation.
That is what I stand here to allege, that the CJN has a tie with the Rivers State governor to at all costs come up with a judgment favorable to the Rivers State government, all in a bid to destroy Rotimi Amaechi. Now, I will say this in confidence, to the extent and also to state that the CJN has also openly and manifestly demonstrated interest. The judges' quota can be likened to a compensation as part of the deal. Now, let me give you another foundation. There is a property in Rivers State, in Port Harcourt, around the Eastern Bypass axis. Here it's owned by Intels. There is a place where Intels operates along the Eastern Bypass axis of Port Harcourt. The current government is unfilling it. The Rotimi Amaechi administration stopped Intels from acquiring that place because it's a waterlogged area, because it will result in flood and other environmental issues.
If you unfill it.
If you unfill it, because it's around the water.
Yeah,
the water
if you unfill it exactly. For the purposes of building property.
Exactly.
It will then exacerbate the flooding issue in that.
Exactly.
In that area. I'm aware of
now, the governor has acquired that place.
Yes.
Intel has raised dust because the one adjacent, opposite on the other side,
yes.
I'm a co-sponsor of a suit stopping Intels from acquiring that place. We're already in court challenging Intel's acquisition of that place because they had no grounds for the acquisition. I am a co-sponsor of that suit, along with a lawyer friend of mine. Now, on this other flank, the Intels is already challenging the Rivers State government. I don't know to what extent. Now, I later discovered that the judges' quarters currently, in dispute, has been awarded to the construction wing of Intels. Now, I stand to be proven wrong. Has been awarded to Intel's construction wing as a way of compensation. Now, you also tie the issue of the CJN in a desperate bid to flag off this particular project, which we had won, because when you talk about the issues of the budget and procurement law, the procurement processes will expose how the land was acquired and so on, which was why we raised that caution sign and raised the red flag. CJN, please stay away. And he went on very respectfully to him, went on, and in this case, he can't feign ignorance because I'm aware that he has full knowledge of the status of that land. He is aware it's in litigation. He is aware of the Rivers State government's desperate bids to take over that place. And then also the issues as to offer an acceptance that may have transpired between the CJN and my Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike, in this case.
Why
so we
will
are
the
saying
Rivers
that
State government want to take over that place, and what will he use it for? Because we're being futuristic now, particularly if you are environmentally conscious of whatever it is that you want to do with that place.
Yes.
Why do you think the Rivers State government wants to take
the property? That's the Sandfield property, or the property where the
will it be for the purposes of Sandfielding it?
No. That place. I think they have a plan to build a facility there, I think maybe a housing estate or so. Now, I'm also giving you a foundation that the one opposite, which is fenced, is in court, and I'm a co-sponsor of that suit. Yes. So that's to tell you I have knowledge of what's going on there. Yeah. Now, the one concerning the judges' quarter also is very surprising, because what you have done is to cause judges in Rivers State, whether innocently or otherwise, to take sides with the Rivers State government against Total E&P. Because they are claiming ownership of the place. And
they are going to be the beneficiary
they are going to be. And then you are adjudicating over a piece of land, and then you go further to benefit from the largesse of that same land, like spoils of war. And we are saying no, we raise the caution that any attempt to further flag off that property will mean the CJN giving judicial seal of approval on an issue of illegitimacy. And in this case, he has done so. In this case, the CJN has shown vested interest in that matter, and he has also, preempted the judge presiding over that matter. Now, I raise these concerns because it's a national question. What I do, maybe Rivers State is like a case study, but it's a Nigerian thing, and it goes beyond mere. Are you always talking about Rivers State? Rivers State is strategic, and my intention and my desire is that if we can use these case studies to straighten the system, because the CJN is the system
will mean the judiciary.
The judiciary, because that also brings
because what your petition hasn't advertently done is to go back to an issue that rocked the judiciary for a long time during the tango between Justice Ayo Salami and then the sitting CJN at that time, as to the powers of the NJC, the composition of the NJC vis-a-vis the, I think the position of the CJN. Because when you make like this petition that you talked about now, if you are asking the NJC to sanction the CJN, I'm just wondering what you are trying to say.
Well,
because the CJN is the chairman of the NJC.
The chairman. Now, the principle of law that
to sanction himself.
The principle of law that no one can be a judge in his own case applies here. So what is to be done is that the CJN must either resign or step aside to be investigated by the NJC. And you cannot excuse him on these two grounds of going to flag off a project that is not captured in the budget in terms of the integrity of the bench. And he cannot also excuse himself of flagging off a property that is in litigation.
That is in litigation.
And he was warned and still goes ahead to flag it off, damning everybody and damning the consequence.
But perhaps the third leg will probably be that the judiciary too is also the beneficiary of that project.
Now, exactly. And also, you can't also rule out the fact that the CJN was in full knowledge of what has played out. Now, remember, you had mentioned the issue of the NJC. The NJC is the disciplinary authority for judges in Nigeria. And the CJN is chairman. I did mention that the honorable thing to do is for him to step down, because the petition, a letter was written to him, demanding that he resigns. And another petition was forwarded to the secretary of the National Judicial Council. Gbenga, I want you to invite lawyers. Let them tell us that the CJN... No, invite lawyers. Yes. Invite lawyers and demand from them to explain what the position should be, whether the CJN, as of rights and morality and law, should continue to occupy that office. He has defaulted, he has breached his oath of office, he has operated or conducted himself below belt, he has conducted himself in a very questionable and grievous manner that raises issues of political partisanship and interest, as in this case. He has joined to ride and wave over the innocent taxpayers of Rivers State just to acquire things to his benefit and his colleagues, not minding the issue of probity and accountability in governance question that we have raised. So we are demanding the CJN. Remember, what this matter has also done is that it brings to the fore the fears people had when this honorable CJN was to be appointed, that this man is corrupt. The CJN is on a mission.
That was just an allegation.
That's what I'm saying. It brings to fore.
An allegation.
It brings to fore the fears. That's what I'm saying. It's the fear. People had fears that he was a corrupt person. And that's also contributed maybe possibly to the delays as to why he was not confirmed. This is not a question of he's from the South and so on. It's a question of justice. And justice must be founded on clean waters, because it's in that semblance that justice is like clean waters, is like an undiluted stream. And nothing to question the integrity of justice should be allowed to stay. And that's why we are saying these two grounds, you don't need any further justification to demand the CJN's raise. And again, it puts to task the NJC, because when the CJN steps down, the most senior Supreme Court judge in that order takes over, because he cannot preside over his matter. And that's why part of what we are going to be doing in the coming weeks is to approach the National Assembly, because we're giving him 14 days to resign, as well as 14 days to the NJC to ensure that the sanctioning will take necessary steps in line with the NJC disciplinary rules and procedures. And failure to do that will approach the National Assembly demanding an amendment of the NJC Act, because this has been a burning question. Remember the issue of Kastinalu?
A committee that was set up during that Salami and
the rest of them.
Kastinalu Tango that time, headed by former CGN Mohammed West, actually suggested or recommended the recomposition of the NJC. But you bringing it up now, you are a lawyer. I'm just wondering if you are not punching above your weight in all of this. If as a lawyer,
I'm not interested in being a senior advocate.
I'm wondering if as a lawyer, you are calling for the resignation or suspension or removal of not just an ordinary judge, but the Chief Justice of Nigeria. And being a lawyer, you are subject to disciplinary control by the body of benchers. By the body of benchers. One of the persons that you have inadvertently also or directly also accused here is Governor Wike.
I'm directly accusing him.
Who is okay? You are directly accusing him. He's also a member of body of benchers. The body of benchers is responsible for disciplinary measures against lawyers. And I'm just wondering if you are not punching above your weight.
That's the second leg of the debate. Because part of our recommendation, which we shall be proposing to the National Assembly, is that if you're a political office holder and then maybe by election or by appointment, and then you're also a member of the body of benchers, it should be compulsory that you step down. Because that's one aspect.
Let me get up.
If you're a political office holder, either by election or by appointment, and ab initio you were a member of the body of benchers,
you become politically exposed.
You become politically exposed. And you are not healthy for the bench, because the body of benchers is composed of both practicing lawyers and judges. So political office holders should not be allowed to be members of the body of benchers, because it gives them the leverage to penetrate or access these judges or to infiltrate them. And that's a challenge. That's why when these meetings where you have governors like the Sokoto governor, Rivers State governor, and other political appointees attending NJC meetings, and people accuse them that they are infiltrating or influencing judges, they'll say how that we have our regular statutory meetings, we are members of the body of benchers. So let's block that place.
Because it actually blurs the line of separation between the three arms of government.
Entirely. It blurs it. It should be amended that once you hold a political office, you should not be a member of the body of benchers. And it should be so. And if the National Assembly sees importance in this aspect, they should take steps, because it's a critical issue. It will go a long way to show impartiality and neutrality of the justice system. Because I can't be in court against you as Governor Wike, and then you're sitting whining and dining with judges who are presiding over
as a
bencher. And then you give the excuse that you're a member of the body of benchers. Then you make me to believe that nothing will transpire. No, it doesn't work that way. That's why we have laws to regulate human conduct. If there is no law regulating any human conduct, it will be subject to abuse. So you cannot rule out abuse in interaction between politicians as members of body of benchers and then the judges in that same structure. So that's why part of this proposal and recommendation is that the law should be amended, dismembering and debarring anyone who is holding a political office from also being member in that dual capacity of the body of benchers. And I challenge lawyers in this country to rise to the occasion on this matter. I know that a lot of them lobby to be there, maybe through the NBA or other structures and so on. But again, those of us who are not in the elite level, who are also, you call us non-state actors or human rights defenders, we see the need for this to be done. Because if it is not done, this manipulation will continue. And that's why the CJN's question that we have just raised, demanding his resignation on these grounds, is very germane and is very, very strategic and sensitive. That the CJN in honor haven't seen that, you know, he had defaulted and he cannot justify it in any way, except he does that, let him come and justify it, should be made to resign. Because the CJN, with all due respect to him, appears to have been compromised given his conduct in this matter. And I've also raised an allegation that the CJN, from information available to me, is on a mission and ties with the Rivers State governor to destroy Rotimi Amaechi at all costs. Look, you can classify me as the evidence in chief on the matter between Rotimi Amaechi and Nyesom Wike.
Why?
And part of the question, because I'm more or less the chief witness, I raised the petition. Every other issue that came arose from, you know, the actions I took.
The petition against Amaechi.
Exactly. And I'm saying here that part of what Rivers people should also do is to know who the thief is. Whether Rotimi Amaechi is the thief or Nyesom Wike, the governor, is the thief. And again, in knowing that, that will mean that Rivers people have to put both individuals to task. The current administration should be put to task. Unfortunately, the governor's inability, which is also late, to publish our budget and procurement plan of the state for 2 years and counting now, you know, is in the class of the fact speaks for itself on the issue of corruption. And the issue of Rotimi Amaechi, listen, Governor Wike had the brightest chance to turn around Rivers State. Because on one count, his first executive order was the appointment of a CJ in Rivers State. I particularly led a campaign, you know, against the Rotimi Amaechi administration over the non-appointment of a CJ in Rivers State. And I filed an action here in Abuja against the Rivers State governor, against the NJC, against the Rivers State Judicial Service Commission, and demanded that the CJ should be appointed in Rivers State. In my opinion, in that campaign, I felt Rotimi Amaechi compromised in terms of not allowing appointments of the CJ, and I challenged it in court. And Nyesom Wike used that as a campaign slogan against him and went ahead upon inauguration. The first executive order he gave was the appointment of a CJ in Rivers State. Why now, having done all of this and leveraged as well as benefited from those struggles, you are now infiltrating? I'm alleging, and I have grounds to allege, that you are making effort to destroy the Nigerian judiciary, compromising the CJ, and we are demanding his resignation. Unfortunately, the Rivers State House of Assembly, on the other count, has remained docile and dormant. The governor has continued to use them as willing tools and stooges. And it's unfortunate that no part of our state budget, if at all it exists, has been brought to question. The other day, I hear some people are saying there is a budget from the House of Assembly. Let them publish it. The House of Assembly is not carrying out any oversight function that raises questions on any part of the budget. The budget is a law. It is called appropriation law. And we have continued to insist. Any day our executive governor, Nyesom Wike, addresses the people of Rivers State, the people of Rivers State should demand that he should make available the budget before he musters the courage to address us. Because the budget is the weapon in the hands of citizens to demand accountability from government.
Unfortunately, if I go by trends, actually, you are the one that is being seen as the outcast.
Well,
that the governor is performing. They have christened him
Apostle or Mr. Project.
Yes, Mr. Project.
Okay, maybe deserving by those who have christened him. Those things are political, but I wouldn't get into all of that. But again, we also are doing an extensive work. Remember, Rotimi Amaechi is minister. He will give account of stewardship as minister someday. Maybe it is also time, because we're also looking at the Ministry of Education under Nyesom Wike and TET Fund and the rest of them. He was minister. He presided over TET Fund and every other. Yes, I am personally making my own findings. And he was also minister and also presided over TET Fund, and a lot of things went on. And we are saying that a day is coming in the coming days where we will demand that he should also give us a clean slate, okay, on these issues. Because the time to answer specific questions, or a specific question is now. Because Rivers people cannot be so cowed. People have called all manner of names, outcast, Amaechi is paying you. The other day it was Wike is paying you against Amaechi. Now it's, and then the Wike side is saying Amaechi is paying you against Wike. Does it mean that the Wike side paid me again? But those things are very, very, inconsequential, because none of the issues I raised from the first day of this advocacy has been successfully and sufficiently challenged or denied by the Rivers State government. So we are holding that position that the CJN should look inwards again and think back and consider, in the integrity of his office, resign from office. Gbenga, I want to appeal and propose a task to you. First of all, that you call lawyers to address these issues and explain to Nigerians that the CJN was right in what he did. And secondly, I want to use this medium to demand that Rivers people should put our state government to task. They should demand accountability from government. They should demand that the Rivers State governor should explain every kobo from the Paris Fund to the IGRO to the federal allocations that have come his way, in line with an accessible budget. Because he has an opportunity to turn around the state. We can take advantage of Nyesom Wike as governor and bring about development, provided he is ready to submit himself to scrutiny and accountability processes. And on the other hand, we can also take advantage of Rotimi Chibuike Amaechi as minister. Today, in fairness, without any sentiment, he does appear, and indeed so, to be the tallest political figure in the current administration from the South-South. And he should be explored, not because it's about Rotimi Amaechi, but it's about the benefit and development of our place, irrespective of whatever sentiment anybody may hold. And I think we should not abuse these two opportunities. On Wike, give us development. There was an economic blueprint he brought on board when he was sworn in that was developed by a committee chaired by a professor, I think Aaron Ojule, respectfully, that chaired that committee. They came up with an economic blueprint. And today that document is nowhere to be found. Our budget is nowhere to be found. Rotimi Amaechi today is minister. Let Rivers people explore him and put him to task within his area of control in government to bring development to our states. And in doing so, we have also raised these questions earlier on about the CJN ties and Nyesom Wike. And we've also made proposals.
We're almost out of time now.
We've also made proposals that the law establishing the NJC should be amended, and that's covering the body of benchers should be amended, making sure that, or making it compulsory that once you're a political office holder, you should not be a member of the body of benchers. But to say this, that Nigerians should now look at the CJN of today, demanding that he resigns because he has compromised his oath of office. He has taken sides in a matter in court in Rivers State and compelled judges in Rivers State along with him on that same issue. And that our Governor Nyesom Wike has a bonding tie to ensure that judgment on Amaechi indictments and a few other issues that we mentioned now are, in his favor. And that must be critically investigated, because the credibility of our state and the sensibility of Nigerians, comes to the table on these two matters.
Livingstone.
Thank you.
Thank you for at least allowing me to stop you now. Thank you. Let's just end it here because we are out of time. Thank you so much. Livingstone Wechie is Executive Director, the Integrity Group. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. That's Focus Nigeria today. Well, we'll come back tomorrow. Of course, we will be looking at the polity yet again to bring something that is also of importance. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day. My name is Gbenga Aruleba.